In the previous discussion, we have talked about the requirement analysis and modeling. So we are trying to extend the discussion with respect to the flow, behavior patterns, and web apps. What are the strategies in requirements modeling? First is the structured analysis, the other is the object oriented analysis. So these are the two strategies. So first view is structured analysis. In this, we consider the data and the processes that are going to transform the data into certain separate entities. The data objects, they are modeled in certain way so that we can define the attributes and relationship between these data objects. And the processes that are going to change, modify the data objects and manipulate the data objects, these are modeled in such a way that is they should show how they transform the data as data objects and what is the flow through the system. The other approach or the strategy is object oriented analysis, and this entails upon or focuses upon first of all the definition of the classes. What are the classes and how these classes are collaborating with one another and with respect to the customer requirements. So this flow oriented modeling, if we are interested in flow oriented modeling, that we just saw that structured approach we are following. So we represent how data objects they are transformed as they move through the system. And DFD is a very good way, which is the diagrammatic form that may be employed. Just consider to be an old school approach, DFD, but it is special. It can show, it can present the requirements in a very good manner. So it should be used to supplement the other analysis model elements. The flow model is something like this. You have input, then for this computer-based system, there are certain output. So every computer-based system has to do this. This is the basic activity what they do. So flow modeling notation, in this we use the external entity like a square or a rectangle. The process as ellipse, the data flow and the data store like this. This is the data store. The external entity can be a producer or a customer of the data, for example, a person or a device or a sensor. You can have a computer-based system also as an external entity. And data must always originate somewhere and must always be sent to something. This is important while presenting it. In terms of the process, as we said, that it will be in the form of circle or ellipse. So a data transformer, which is the process which changes our input to the output. For example, compute access, determine area, format report, display graph. So data must always be processed in some way to achieve certain function, system function. Then the data flow, this arrow is showing the data flow. The data flow is through the system, which can begin as an input, and finally you can get an output. So you can input the base and height to compute the triangle area. This is your function or a process. These are the inputs and this should be the output area. What about the data stores? This is where the data will be stored, for example, for later usage. Sensor and report which is required, we look up for sensor data, and there are certain functionality which are happening, which is the output, which is sensor number, type, location, age. But we have a sensor data. This is our storage, which is actually for every sensor number, it is giving you type, location, and age. There are certain guidelines you need to follow in data flow diagram. All icons you must label it with meaningful names. The DFD evolves through number of level of details. That is, you don't have one DFD. The context level diagram, we also call it as level 0. So first is level 0. We also call this DFD level 0 as context level diagram. And we always show external entities at level 0. External entities at level 0. Then we always label data flow through arrows. And we do not represent any procedural logic here. And the review user scenarios or the data models, we do it to isolate data objects, and we use grammatical parsing like verbs, nouns. So verb to determine the operation. And we determine external entities, for example, producers or customers of consumers of data. Then we create a level 0 DFD. So this is just a level 0 DFD for a certain example we take. For example, we have a digital video processor. What it does, user will submit the processing request. Video source may be NTSC or video signal, NTSC or PAL. And the requested video signal will be given to the monitor. So this is the simplest way you can represent your system. This is a level 0 context level diagram. Then you need to write a narrative describing the transform. And you need to parse the narrative transform to determine the next level forms. For example, you need to balance the flow to maintain the data flow continuity what you have chosen in the level 0. So you have to maintain that continuity. So develop a level 1 DFD, which maybe say 1:5 expansion ratio, means if it was level 0 was 1, you can expand it to 5 level more. This is a data flow hierarchy of the level. This was level 0. Now I want this to be exemplified more. So this one is more exemplification of our process. So now process, this involve P1 which goes to P2, then P1 goes to P3, then comes to P4. So we have just more refined it. How to model the flow? Each bubble is refined until it just does one thing or it is manageable. The expansion ratio decreases as the number of level increases. Most systems they require between say 3 to 7 levels of adequate flow diagram. So level 3 to level 7, level 3 to level 7 will be enough. And the single data flow item or arrow may be expanded as levels increases. We can use the data dictionary for the information. This is PSEP, PSPEC, which is called as a process specification, spec for specification. For example, this is the process bubble. What can be the specification of this particular bubble? We can have a narrative specification, pseudocode, equation table, or diagrams or charts. So all these can be used to specify this bubble or the process. What are the DFDs? Look ahead. You are actually mapping this DFD into something called as a structure chart in the later session. Okay, this is a design model. So control flow modeling. In this control flow modeling, you represent events, and the process that are going to manage this event. The event is a Boolean condition which can be defined or asserted by. Say we want to list all sensors that are read by the software, listing all the interrupt condition, listing all switches that are actuated by the operator, listing all the data condition. You must recall those noun and verb thing, in the narrative processing narrative, and all the control items you need to place as possible in your CSPC, that is control specification input and output. So this is how you can give the control specification CSPEC. For the state diagram, you can have a state transition table, decision table, activation table, and this is the combinatorial specs for a certain process. What about the behavior? Behavior means state or action. The behavioral modeling, it will indicate how software is going to respond to certain external events or some stimulus is there, how the system is going to respond. So you need to create the model, and in order to create the model, the analyst has to perform certain steps. What are the steps? First, we have to evaluate all use cases just to understand the sequence of interaction with the system. And then we need to identify the events that will drive the interaction sequence, and then understand and have the knowledge of how these events relate to specific objects. And then we create a sequence for each use case, and then we'll make a state diagram. And then we'll review again the behavioral model for any inconsistency or inaccuracy. The state representation, we have just talked about the behavioral model. So there are two different characterization of state which must be understood. First is the state of each class as the system performs its action, and the same state of the system as observed by the outside, from the outside of the system performs the function. So state when the system performs the function, and state when you view it from the outside. So the state of class, which can take both passive and active characteristics. The passive state means it is simply the current status of all the object attributes. That can be a passive state. Active state is say for an object. It will indicate the current status of the objects, what transformation it is going on with it, and the processing which is carried out. The state of this system, because there are different states. Sometimes it may be like I am an individual, I may be sleeping, I may be dancing, I may be eating. So I have certain state. In the same way, a system can also have a state which is an observable circumstances that will characterize the behavior of a system at a particular given time. This is what we call as a state. So there can be a state transition, that is movement from one state to another. Since I'm reading, and while after reading I'm sleeping. So reading from sleeping is the state transition. And what is the event and occurrences that is going to cause the system to show some predictable form of behavior. Now it is 12 o'clock midnight. I am going to sleep. So at 12 o'clock this is the event, which is giving me an idea, though I have to go to the office tomorrow, so I have to sleep. So action, that process that occurs as a consequence of making a transition, means what is the action? At 12 o'clock I will sleep. So this is the action. So how to model the behavior? We have to make a list of different state of the system. How does the system behave actually? And then we have to indicate how the system makes a transition from one state to another. That is, you have to indicate the event, and you have to indicate the action on this event also. For that, you will draw the state diagram or a sequence diagram. How to write a software specification then? This is a $1 million question now. Specification. Everyone knew what exactly had to be done until someone wrote it down. We know what we need to do, but we have to write it. So how we can use this pattern for requirement modeling? There are certain patterns, software patterns, where we have the domain knowledge. We can capture the domain knowledge in such a way that it can be reapplied. Patterns are actually reapplication. When a new problem is encountered, we have done something, and when we have same problem, we will use it. So the domain knowledge can even be applied to a new problem if the application domain is the same. And the domain knowledge captured by a pattern earlier, now this can be reapplied to the application with similar or application with different domain also. The original author of the analysis pattern do not create the pattern, but he discovers or discover it as a requirement engineering work is when it is being conducted. So once you discover the pattern, you should document it. How to discover or what is discovering analysis pattern? The most basic element in the description of requirement model is the use case. First of all, use case. There are certain coherent use cases that may serve as the basis of finding or discovering, digging out the analysis pattern. SAP, semantic analysis pattern. So what is this? It is a pattern that describes a small set of coherent use cases that together describe a basic generic application. So that generic application can be used for any specific application. Then the web apps. Now web apps is very important. Web application. How you are going to you go about requirement analysis and modeling for web apps. First, you have to do the content analysis. See, content analysis, and then various aspects are there: interaction analysis, functional analysis, configuration analysis. So in content analysis, you have to see the full spectrum of the content that is provided in the web app, like text, graph, images, video, audio. And then you have to do the modeling to identify and describe each of these data objects which we just referenced. Then the interaction. Because in web application, user is going to interact. Okay, you have to describe it in detail. So use cases need to be made to provide the detailed description of this interaction. Then the functional analysis, that is the usage scenario with respect to the use cases. This is defined or made as an interaction analysis, which defines the operation when it is applied to the web app content, and it will imply or it will result in certain processing function. And the operation functions are described in the later detail. Configuration analysis, because the environment and the infrastructure in which web app reside is also important. What is the browser? What is the client server technology? Are you using web services? Are you using data from the system only? What about the web server? What web server you are using? If it is remote, if it is localized, all this configuration analysis need to be understood and to be noted. So when do we perform analysis in web situation? Analysis and design, they sometimes merge, but an explicit analysis activity will take certain things into account. The web app is built, which is to be built, is large or complex if it is. The number of stakeholders are very large. The number of web engineers and those contributors which are going to contribute, they are large. The objectives and the intentions and the goals for the web app will affect the business bottom line. So the success of web app will have a strong effect or resultant on the success of the business. In some web situation, as we said that these two merge, so we perform when sometimes they merge, sometimes you can do it explicitly also. The content model. The content objects, these are extracted from the use cases, right? We are talking about the web app. So content objects, they are extracted from use case. We examine the scenario description for direct and indirect reference to the content, and attributes of each content objects need to be identified. Then the relationship. The relationship, the collaboration among these content objects, and also the hierarchy of the content management has to be seen, that is to be maintained by the development of web app. So relationship, that is you can make a ER diagram or a UML, you can use hierarchy, you can use a data tree or a UML. The interaction model, which will contain the use cases, the sequence diagram, the state diagram, and also the user interface prototype. This is important. User interface is very important in the web apps. This is the sequence diagram. Say a new customer, he describes the room. So you have room, floor plan. These are all the classes you are going to use, and how you are defining the sequence. This is the sequence. See. So it is actually giving the sequence where each and every, or you can say a swim lane diagram. So these are the sequence diagram for use case for say some safe home component. Then the functional model. This functional model addresses two processing elements of the web app. First is your user observable functionality, and then the operation contained within the analysis classes. So user observable functionality, which is to be delivered by the web app to the end user, and the operations contained within the analysis classes that are being implemented or that will be implementing behaviors which are associated with the class. Then the activity diagram, which can be easily used to represent the processing flow. This is an example of activity diagram. This activity diagram is showing that camera, whether it is in use, not in use. Then you have to call which function or call the name, whether the lock available, not available. You have to report availability, non-availability. Then you can get current camera. If camera is in use, you can report camera in use and name of current user. This is a simple example of activity diagram. Please note that this is actually following the diagram notation of the UML. Then the configuration, because web app require these server side and client side. So server hardware and operating system needs to be specified here. The interoperability consideration on the server side must be understood and considered. The interfaces, the communication protocol, and the relative collaborative information must be known and specified. In the client side, you need to know what browser you are using, what are the configuration issues, whether it supports HTML5 or not. All these things, the testing requirements needs to be defined. Then in the navigation modeling, because in web app most important is the navigation. You'll move from one page to another, then come back and go to some other page, then you come back. So should we need to answer certain thing. Should certain elements be easier to reach when that may require fewer navigation steps than others? And what is the priority of the presentation? Should certain elements be emphasized to force users to navigate into other direction? How navigation errors need to be handled? Should navigation be related groups of element given priority over certain others? Should navigation be accomplished via links or search based access or by some other means? Should certain element be presented to user based on some context of previous navigation occurs, like some were stored in cookies and cache, so it can give an idea that okay, you have done that, you must be doing that. And should a navigation log be maintained for users? Should a navigation map or menu be available at every point in the user interaction? Should navigation design be driven by more commonly expected user behavior or by the perceived importance of defined web elements? Can a user store the previous application through the web app just to expedite the future usage? And for which user category should optimal navigation be designed? And how should link external to the web app be handled, overlaying the existing browser window as a new browser window or a separate frame? So these are all things which you need to know in the context of web app, because we have discussed about the modular thing for structure, we have discussed about the object one, we have discussed about the web app also. And these are the requirement modeling aspects which you need to know. You can use DFD, you can use UML, and you need to know all the diagrams which are used in different scenario, different scheme. Thank you so much.